Well, while he's coming, Sonny, do you want to just go ahead and
Okay.
maybe start providing an update, and then hopefully he'll join.
Yeah. So, so Mandar and I, the plan is hopefully by mid of this month, we should have the code checked in, which would at least and have a couple of end-to-end tests, which would exercise this out of proc adapter backend work. There are multiple PRs that are out. There are PRs to auto create CRDs for adapter developers. Just create this base 64 strings from file descriptors, so making its stuff a little easier for the adapter developer. And while doing what else is there? So Mandar is work. So we have defined a snapshot interface over which Mandar and I are working. So he's consuming the config from that snapshot, and I'm working on building that snapshot. And hopefully our work, I mean, hopefully if both of us do it correctly, then it should just work.
Okay. What are the major roadblocks? Are there things that you need help with, or
so
is it just getting PRs reviewed?
Yes, I think getting PRs reviewed is priority one, but I think it has been okay so far. I mean, the CI system is cooperating very well. So things are going in. Oz, Mandar, Martin are reviewing stuff at reasonable pace. So I think that is not a problem. Martin and I talked, and I think there is one more piece of how do we use existing adapters to work with this out of proc work. So we need a shim, which would translate this IBP interface to the Go interface, and Martin would probably help out next week to create that shim. It would be auto generated based on templates. So any existing adapter should be able to just say, I want to create a shim because I want to run it out of process, and that shim gets created. One has to compile it into into the binary and run it as a service. So,
okay.
So we need to figure out how to run it as a service. That's a different problem, but first we need to generate the shim.
Okay, that is targeted for next week.
Yeah, start implementation next week. I don't know how long will it take.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get that done next week. It doesn't seem like it should be too difficult.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else we should talk about with the out of process adapters? We're still planning. So it sounds like, do we have a first new adapter for this work that's targeted?
So there is just one checked in fake SPI adapter SPI out of proc backend, but I don't think we have any real adapters using this interface.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the motivation of doing this shim, is to also get a collection of adapters on that plan.
Okay. So do we want to try and solicit an early use case from somewhere? Is that something we should look at before 1.0, or are we happy with just the shim and the SPI adapter?
Actually, Jeff was interested in creating one. So Jeff, do you?
Yeah, I have an adapter that might be using this that might not make it into the open source 1.0 release. So
okay.
Not ready to talk about it now.
Okay. My computer is freezing. Okay. So, Sonny, I know that as part of this, you guys are doing a CRD refactor. I was just wondering if you had any updates there.
So we haven't checked in the CRD definitions for the new config kinds, CRD kinds, but we have started consuming them as just a string. Like there's going to be a new CRD kind called adapter or template. So those definitions needs to go in, and it's probably 1 day of work. So,
but the APIs are in, right? Are they? Isn't the Istio API PR already in?
Yeah, that has been there for a very long time.
Yeah. Okay, right. Yes. So we just have to start using it on the mixer side.
Yeah, and I think those PRs are going in to start using them, but we don't have like the CRD definitions to actually make it work in the Kubernetes system. So right now the tests work, but nothing else.
Okay, so at what
so
point
this
do
is
you think we'd have those missing pieces?
What's that, Martin?
At what point do you think we'd have those missing pieces then?
Oh, I think it is hopefully end of next week.
Okay, so at that point we should in the context of the 1.0 work, we should change all of our YAMLs to use those new formats.
So are we planning to deprecate the old? So I was thinking we're going to have them side by side.
Yeah, the old has to keep working,
Okay.
but we should change all the stuff we ship to be on the new plan, update the docs accordingly, and then in a couple months we'll delete the old stuff.
I actually am not sure if we'll be able to move, because the new stuff is mainly designed for dynamic adapters and dynamic templates.
No. So Sunny, just the move from having dedicated CRDs to abstract instances, handlers, that part is not joined at the hip to anything.
Okay, so maybe we need to.
Useful. I mean, we needed it for gRPC adapters, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not completely joined, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think I just need to. I mean, no code has been checked in yet. I need to check if I have joined them together assuming that it is the new kind system where we have separate. We don't have separate kinds for each adapters. That one is not coupled with the out of proc work, or assumes that it is a dynamic. It has to have a dynamic template CR.
Okay, so you can check that, but
I can check that, but you're right.
There is no inherent coupling here.
Correct. Yeah, you're right.
Completely orthogonal, and also from the inside, we don't really maintain any of this kind information anyway. So any of the actual mixer code it doesn't really care. It just config comes in and it actually gets funneled into the same type anyway inside.
Yeah, so the spec parts are not changing basically.
Correct.
Right. So that's,
yeah. Okay, then I think what I'll do is before resuming the work on AutoPro, I can probably define the CRDs and move few of the configs that we ship in the test data and stuff, because that should just work if we can just and change the snapshot creation, because as you said, the internal type system is still intact.
Yeah, so that would be an excellent separate piece to check in.
Yeah, and it is just one block, and that way any of the out of proc work accidentally doesn't mix those things together, and that should just continue to work. And it's probably a day and a half work, so I can probably focus on that quickly.
So I mean, I would, if either Martin or Doug have bandwidth like today and tomorrow, actually, Sunny, do you think it would be better that part be handed over to someone and then we continue back?
Yeah, if Martin and Doug can help out, that'd be really awesome.
Maybe.
Well, it would certainly be awesome, but I guess.
So were you going to volunteer? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I may have a few hours over the next 2 days, so maybe I can sync up with you offline, Sunny, about prioritizing that. So I think this is important for 1.0, so I think we should get this done.
Yeah, ideally we get this done as soon as possible so it gets more exposure.
Right. So yeah, let's coordinate offline, Sunny, about that.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, I know we had talked about switching from using Istio system as like a global indicator to having mesh wide and namespace specific config. Has there been any more design or work along those lines, and is anyone owning that work?
All I saw about that was a few emails from Sven.
Yeah, is that, I mean, I suppose it is committed for 1.0, but yeah, I don't think anyone is actually doing anything about it. Again, the code change on Mixer side is going to be minimal, right? We don't, like, it doesn't really affect us that much.
Yeah, it's more the config around it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just but the user facing things are affected, and I mean, that whole thing is kind of messed up. But anyway, we don't, we have what we have, it seems, from Kubernetes standpoint, right?
Yeah, I think we'll fix this in a one fell swoop with Galley and service config.
Right.
But until then,
Okay.
we're kind of on there.
So the question then is it, if we have a plan of better fix, do we have to have this like interim thing and introduce new resources that have the function encoded in the name, which sounds like a hack right away?
I would prefer not.
Yeah.
But,
so
but
if you can get some agreement on that from Sven, whether we need to do it now, otherwise we'll just wait for the proper solution. Not worry about this right now.
okay, it's just in general, we've been, any bets we place on Galley, we've been hedging.
Okay.
Well, that changes things then.
Yeah, so I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Maybe we can just make that disappear. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Martin, do you have any updates on the perf changes? I hadn't actually paid attention to whether or not those PRs had gone in. I saw them getting some reviews, I think, but
Yeah, so I put in the buffering changes in, and I was just before this meeting in the process of writing an email about the check cache, and I'm having second thoughts about this. So maybe you guys can convince me either way. So the check cache I implemented just needed, I think Works and Doug, you just had some comments about splitting up a function into pieces. And I was about to do that work, but last week, Mandar and I talked about kind of a different way to compose Mixer in the future. And part of that was looking at how we do caching in general. And the cache I implemented sits right in the front of Mixer, in front of everything else. When a check call comes in, the first thing we do is do a cache lookup and then return if we find it in the cache. So we don't run the APAs or any of the adapter logic. The cache follows a pattern that's very similar to what's in the Mixer client cache. It's all based on, we create cache keys based on the set of attributes that were used. And computing the cache keys ends up being reasonably expensive because you need to figure out which sets of attributes to include, serialize all these attributes, calculate an MD5 on it, and so forth. It seems that it might be more efficient to be cache from at the cache level. It might be more efficient to be caching instances rather than caching attributes. So imagine we do all the processing and produce a set of instances that are finally sent to the adapter. The instances are fully denormalized and they tend to have less state than the attributes.
So essentially, Martin, a cache in between Mixer and the adapters, right? Rather than between the client and the Mixer.
Well, so that's possibly. Now, if I look at certain of our adapters, like the list checker adapter or the OPA adapter, they don't need any caching because they can do all the computation locally already.
Yeah.
Which leads me to think that maybe the caching should be the responsibility of the adapter and Mixer should just not do anything. And I should just delete my PR completely.
So a long time ago, back in the mixologist days, right, we had talked about having sort of a generic cache layer that you could opt into via adapter config.
Yeah.
Do we think that that's worth having if we go that route to say, well, you don't have to implement it yourself, but you can opt into having it done for you?
Yeah, so that would definitely be doable. I'm waiting for, I think as part of the out-of-proc adapter stuff, we'll have support now for per adapter config, mixer level config for each adapter. And then we can have a flag in there that says do check caching or not.
Right, because this cache is actually, I think, almost required for out-of-proc adapters, right? Like having a cache that sits at Mixer before Mixer dispatches out over the network. That cache is very helpful, and again, that's between the boundary of Mixer and adapter.
Okay, so even the list checker adapter, if it's out of proc, would still benefit from a low.
Because anytime, like the network hop is the thing there, I guess. So anything that's doing network hop, we can put a cache in front of.
Okay, so the problem is that right now it's not a problem, but the instances that we're generating right now are involve code gen. So in order to use those to produce a cache key, there would need to be some code gen involved there or reflection as well. If I wait until the out-of-proc stuff is in place, and then we actually are serializing the instances into byte arrays.
Correct, and then you can do SHA that easily.
MD5.
Yeah, MD5, sorry, yes.
Way cheaper than SHA and just as good for this kind of use.
For this kind of use, yeah.
Yeah, so then that would say I scrap my current PR, wait a couple weeks, and then implement the cache on the other side of things. So that means for a cache hit, we would spend more, well, probably more CPU time, but not that much more.
Not that much more, right? Because we are going to be getting ready to serialize it, send it out to the network. Just before that, do MD5 cache lookup and just save the network access.
Well, but right now, in theory, the cache is before you do any processing at all, right? So we don't need to run evaluate expressions and run the APAs and any of that stuff. So now we would be doing that, and then right before we hit the final adapter, then we'd bail out.
Yeah, what kind of cache hit rate do we expect? I think that will also dictate which is better, right? We expect high cache hit rate at the client. On the server, if the cache hit rate is high, it's okay for the lookup to be expensive. If the hit rate is low, then it's actually double whammy.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on how scaled the mixer is, right? So if the mixer has many clients, so there's many sidecars talking to a single mixer, then the cache is probably going to be more useful, and so you get more cache hits out of it.
Does your current PR have a way of just disabling and enabling by a command line flag or something?
Yeah, so that's actually what I was going to say. Maybe I should just check it in as is, because it works and you can easily turn it off and you can scale the size of the cache. And then in a few weeks I implement the other end of the cache, and then we can actually run tests with one enabled or the other and see what happens. This new cache is self-contained. If we decide we don't like it, we delete the package and remove a couple function calls and it's gone.
That seems reasonable to me. I don't know what others think, but
yeah, I think it seems reasonable. It also puts more burden on performance testing, right? Yeah. We already have 16 dimensions. This is the 17th dimension. So, but yes, it is. If it's ready, if it's useful, and I think it makes sense to have a flag and put it in.
Okay, so I'll finish the PR then and check it in, and then maybe delete it in a month or something. So it's not a big deal.
And the disable, just I guess the only thing that I would say is that the disabling should be complete.
Yeah. So when you set the command line option lets you set the cache size.
Mm-hmm.
If you set the cache size to 0, the cache object is not allocated, and the only extra cost you pay for having the cache present is an if check, one if check.
Okay, but okay, so it wouldn't be that we are still computing the cache key and then always not hitting or something like that. Okay, yeah. As long as the disable is complete, that it's just not in the picture at all, I think we're good.
Yeah. So in fact, we could ship 1.0 with that thing in place and disabled and really not pay anything for it.
Okay, great.
All right, terrific. Thank you.
Cool. Kawat, would you mind providing an update on some of the client-side reporting work that you've been doing? I know that there are interested parties on the call.
Sure. So I made changes to supply report attributes, the context reporter UID and context reporter local. It's still for server-side reporting, so at least we have those attributes. For client-side reporting, these are issues with how we model virtual service. So I think I just keep hitting some of those discussions, how to represent and how to propagate virtual service information to the pilot plugins. So I don't think it's quite resolved yet. So I'm not sure what to do about that stuff. I think the way to do it would be just to have another maybe secondary Mixer 2 plugin that coexists with existing plugin that we can optionally prototype something before we can make a decision what to do about the pilot plugins. I sent a doc to Shiram and Martin Ostrowski what I need from the plugins, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen or if I should have to do it or not.
So hold on. Can you explain again? What are those plugins?
So Mixer configuration is done through plugins in pilot, and some of this. So it receives some data from pilot internally, and that data is not always sufficient to configure Mixer.
I mean, the Mixer client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that issue, and I have a doc what I need from plugins. So I'm hoping there's enough extension points there to implement it properly. I do have actual sample config for Envoy that works. I just have trouble making pilot produce it. So I also have to mention about a couple other things apart from the reporting. So I did the switch to UDS for bootstraps in Mixer. That should hopefully help with performance for the local host connection. I think,
okay.
Yeah, that's not really reporting, but I don't know where we're going to put it. Some other perf changes probably.
Does anybody have any updates on the supposed performance issue in Mixer client?
When it has added new counters, I haven't actually heard from him about the data gathered from those counters yet.
Okay.
And the other thing that I would like to say about UDS is that Quad, if it is in, please measure the performance and quantify whatever it is.
Yeah, it was done more as a proactive measure because I don't see any downsides except maybe debugging. But yeah, I can measure what it helps.
Right, whether it actually helps or I mean, I expect it to help, of course, but.
Well, so where is UDS used?
Between Mixer, Sidecar, and Mixer.
Okay, yeah.
Just the local, the local host 9093 or 9092, whatever it is, that's replaced by UDS.
All right.
I did notice one thing.
You know that it's about 1 millisecond that you pay per for sidecar to like put sidecar in the middle. So it would be, yeah, it would be very useful to know how much the saving here is.
So why does Mixer need special attention? Shouldn't this just be the same as any other sidecar and service integration?
The pilot does not support UGS, so there's no way for services to declare that they want to use UGS to communicate to the sidecar. So for internal stuff, we have a control over what we listen to, so we can use UGS.
So is that a planned feature for pilot then?
No, it's a static bootstrap. It doesn't use pilot. It's just handwritten Envoy config.
But Martin, if your point is that do we plan to extend that to all other services that may be, I don't think it's planned yet. It doesn't look like it's planned yet. Also, not that many services like directly support. I mean, it's minimal code changes. It's not that big of a deal. But
out of the box, the service.
Out of the box, they just wouldn't. They would just open a normal TCP connection.
Yeah. But given our overall concern and worry about performance and latency, it seems like an easy win.
Yep.
Yeah. I also Cilium eBPF solution. Its best performance is basically UGS. So if they can do faster than Istio, then using UGS would put us on par. And another change I also did was to implement the route directive for the adding and removing headers in Envoy. So I had an API change for a while, and I implemented an Envoy, and the PR is out.
Okay.
So what else is required along that path?
Which one?
That makes sense? So if we have the route directive support and we can add headers.
So that needs a mixer change. I've done it from the bottom up. So
yeah, so we're missing the logic in Mixer to actually create these directives somehow.
Right.
Do we think that work will happen before 1.0 or in the next couple of weeks? Or do you think that that's more of a longer term?
We need new language features and stuff. So I think it's a longer term thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that can be even partially done? Because it immediately adds value. It immediately opens things up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the most expedient way would be to, if we extend the results that check adapters can return to not only include a status, but also to include a route directive, we could just pass that through.
Okay. That doesn't seem, that seems, yeah, okay.
Well, you said the expedient. Or
yeah, but this seems kind of hacky. It also destroys the separation quite a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna send a doc about how to add a template for check result, so like the attributes could be put into as a source of input to the route directive, but I just didn't have time to finish.
Yeah, basically it needs to work like the APA is.
Yeah.
Effectively. Yeah, so let's not rush. This is not a required feature. Let's do it right. So I think
it's not a required feature, but there are use cases that would benefit tremendously from this being done. So it's fair to say we're not going to do it.
Yeah, we're aware. We're working on it. We'll have it'll be a great new 1.1 feature.
Or 1.01 or whatever. Okay. But yeah, as long as we don't make any breaking changes to the API surface.
Well, except renaming all the attributes. And changing all of our CRDs.
Yeah.
That.
Okay. Martin, do you want to add anything about the attribute changes? I have PRs out to actually provide the data.
No, I guess there's nothing new. I think we had a little panic attack on Monday about not being able to determine destination service properly in all cases, which would make it so Mixer can't figure out which config to use. But there seems to be a solution for that by doing a reverse DNS lookup on the VIP, at least on Kubernetes.
What's the issue there?
So we use the whole, effectively the destination host name to drive our service selection or our config selection. And if a single workload implements multiple services, you effectively don't know which service was being used when the workload received a request. For HTTP, you could look at the host header. That is probably sufficient. For TCP, there's just nothing.
Oh yeah. I think I sent an email when I talked to Mandar that I've seen this behavior in my prototype, but it's not clear what to do with TCP.
Well, so if from what Doug was saying this morning, if we just do a reverse lookup on the host IP address, the destination IP address, we should find the service identity properly on Kubernetes at least, because each service has a different VIP.
This helps on client side. I think your concern is server side. What?
Yeah, well, I think that looking up by VIP is also not possible on the server side because VIPs are removed when they reach.
Yeah, that's right. We're too late.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still screwed then.
It's just like source service. It's not clear.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one solution that seems possible is to make a requirement that each service, if you're going to have multiple services in a workload, each service needs to be exposed outside of the proxy by the sidecar at different ports. And then we can apply policies accordingly based on which port the traffic arrives in. It doesn't matter what the physical service's actual port selection is, it's really what the proxy is exposing.
Okay, that seems like a big change to pilot the program proxies.
Yeah. So it's but like otherwise I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to send an email out then. I thought the VIP thing was a solution, but actually it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it only works client side.
I had a quick question about the implementation on this. Sorry, I couldn't figure it out from the doc. The source.workload, is it going to be replication controller always, or is it going to have a type?
What did we decide?
Source workloads don't have types.
Yeah, it just has a name.
So
it's a namespace.
it's just a name and a namespace. Yeah.
So if it's replication controller, it gets filled out, but if it's anything else, it doesn't.
I'm sorry?
So source is the pod and source.workload is the replication controller.
Or the daemon set or that.
Yeah.
So what if we
or the
have,
job or the
so if we have a replication controller and a daemon set that both have the same name, the source.workload is not going to be able to distinguish between those two?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so
there's
that's
a new attribute. There's a new attribute on the source. It's source owner that has the UID of the owner for that pod, and that could be how you could distinguish if you're interested.
Source.owner. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Thanks.
Okay.
So Doug, when do you think all this stuff can come in?
So I have 2 PRs out right now. Hopefully they finish by the end of this week. I mean, that's what I've promised other people. So pending reviews and test passing, it should be by the end of this week.
Oh, cool.
So
okay, and we have all the, okay, so we need to go through and update all the YAML files as well?
Yeah, then there's the matter of deriving the values, and there's a matter of changing all the configurations to produce them, and that will follow on as soon as the other PRs are in, right?
Okay.
Excellent. Hopefully those will be less contentious than everything else, but yeah. So I'm still trying to shoot for 6.8 to have all that wrapped up. So we'll see. Either happens then or happens during the weekend, so I don't get shot on Monday. Yeah.
All right.
Jeff, did you want to provide any updates on some of the tracing API work that you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, I haven't worked on this in the last couple of weeks, but when I was working on it a couple of weeks ago, I had a really good conversation with Quat. He helped me out a lot. It looks like there is no Istio entity in configuration that maps cleanly to where the tracing configuration is on Envoy. The tracing configuration on Envoy is part of the port, whereas on an Istio entity would be like a virtual server. Although if you make that port change that you just talked about above, maybe that fixes the problem. But so I think what we can do right now, which is easy, is make a global proto like you had before, and just have a global percentage of sampling, and then for longer term, look at making a change in Envoy to allow the sampling configuration to be more specific than port.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to get my thoughts here. There was another related question that we had started to look at in the API, which was supporting other exporters, if you will. So Envoy, I guess, recently added support for dynamic export. And the Lightstep guys wondered when Istio was going to provide support for Lightstep. So I think I roped you into that conversation, Jeff, but that's something else we want to think about as we design that configuration artifact.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. Keep that in mind. Thanks.
Yeah.
So what is Lightstep?
And Ramon, a Lightstep is just another tracing application.
Another format. Okay.
Yeah, Ramon might know more, but they were behind the open tracing work, I think, originally, and so they had their own backend and stuff.
So I recall the problem we had with this is that we need, well, maybe that would be, so the tracing API we would want to be dynamic, versus the Envoy config needs to be done at cluster setup for the exporter, if I recall correctly. So maybe these configs go into different places. I know we have like a cluster proto for Istio.
Yeah.
The Bootstrap config, or it's somewhere else?
Bootstrap.
Oh, this goes in Bootstrap again?
So yeah, we could have the exporter config in Bootstrap, and then a tracing config that's dynamic that does the sampling.
The assertion was that Envoy now supports dynamic reloading of it. Is it all at Bootstrap time though? Maybe it's all at Bootstrap time. I haven't actually checked on that.
Well, I'll look into it and figure it out.
Okay.
So Lyft uses Lightstep in production, and it's probably better quality than the community.
Cool.
Okay. Are there any other topics that anyone wants to talk about or bring up, or?
I'd like to mention a bug I found yesterday. It's a little disturbing. So if you recall how quota works, the proxy needs to ask for quotas by name. So I want the proxy says I want tokens for quota request count. The mixer then is supposed to dispatch instances that match that name to wherever they're supposed to go. And right now, the code we have in Mixer dispatches every quota instance that exists gets dispatched. every quota every quota instance gets dispatched, no matter who wants what. And apparently we've had that behavior for a long, long time.
Yes, and there was an inline fix me in the old runtime, and I guess that probably didn't carry over to the new runtime that says.
No, that's a different one. So we've always had the thing that for a given quota, it could be sent to multiple adapters, and then right now we non-deterministically pick whichever response first is the response we send to the user. So that's kind of sucky, but fine. This is about you've defined different instances. They all get sent, even if the proxy is only asking for one quota. And if you have multiple adapters, well, they'll all get sent to all adapters. So we're just missing a loop that says only zip through all available instances, only send instances that match the request name. And I guess that stems from the fact we've never done the test. Probably never tests two quotas at once.
Yeah, it only does request count. That's the only thing it does. You're right.
Yeah. So I'll be fixing this later today. But it's probably been that similar behaviors for over a year. I'm guessing.
Well, for a while we only really supported one quota. As it was, right? It was hard coded. So, but yeah.
Quotas have been a pain since the beginning. It's just not, they're unpleasant.
Yeah, and that test has turned into the test everything test too, the test rate limit and everything. Okay, so I assume you're working at Martin and you're gonna follow that through?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other topics we should discuss, or should we adjourn?
Oh, I'm muted. Hi, I'm Ramon. I work on the open census team at Google. I did have a question about the tracing API stuff, and like, what is the difference, or what is how do we make a decision whether to instrument Envoy and have Envoy send spans to tracing backends versus using a trace span adapter in Mixer?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think our answer to date has been that we wanted to enable both approaches. I think there's going to be cases where people don't want to use Mixer but still want to get trace data. And so we need some way of configuring the envoys to export trace data. And at the same time, it makes sense.
But the broader context is that we intend to have data that flows through Mixer be editable. Right, so the operator can write rules to strip out PII or whatever, and as well as multiplex. So even though the proxy can only send Jaeger or whatever, the Mixer can rewrite that and send that to different backends automatically. So that's kind of the value add that Mixer is providing, this rewriting ability.
Oh, okay. Right. So you would have Mixer or something expose the Zipkin API.
Correct.
And that would be the integration point.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do that for stuff in general. So for metrics as well, we'll just ingest standards, a small set of standard metrics protocols. So services can export metrics. They'll be captured by Mixer. Then the operator can choose to do whatever they want with those metrics and move it on down. Because really Mixer is truly at that point a mixer, right? It takes inputs and sends it to different outputs at will.
And Ramon, I think we have some discussions later this week with some of the open census team as well about I know the open census team has plans about sort of the sidecar for telemetry, so we want to make sure we synchronize work there too.
Am I in that? I didn't know. When is that, on Friday?
I can follow up with you. I think it's tomorrow. But, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Anything else? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and talk to you in a few weeks.
See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.